My name is Nancy, and I have an older brother, Keith, who is 7 years older than me. From the time we were children, Keith stood out for his exceptional academic ability. He excelled in every subject, graduated from a prestigious high school and university, and became the pride of our parents. They often spoke about his achievements with admiration. But growing up in an environment where he was constantly praised and expected to succeed changed him. After graduating university and landing a job, Keith abruptly decided to leave home. With a wry smile, he remarked sarcastically, "I can't stand such a mundane life in this house anymore." That moment is etched in my memory. Our parents were taken aback, saddened by how different he seemed from the cheerful son they once knew. As for me, I felt anger. I had never stood out academically or athletically, nor did I attend a prestigious high school, but I cherished our family's love and warmth. Both Keith and I owed everything to our parents' support. I wished he could see that too. During my high school years, I came to realize how irreplaceable that warmth truly was. Strangely, Keith seemed immune to it. Despite the affection our parents poured into us, he dismissed them as ordinary and unremarkable. As a child, Keith had been my hero. He cared for me, played with me, and even helped me study. But by the time I was ready to graduate high school, he had grown cynical. He began questioning the value of education and dismissed my own academic pursuits. Whenever challenged, he blamed our parents, claiming that they were the reason for his disillusionment. I often cried over his words, but my parents would comfort me, saying gently, "Nancy, you've grown into such a kind-hearted person." Encouraged by their support, I enrolled in a national university and eventually secured a position at my dream company. By then, my parents were nearing 60, while Keith was already married. Oddly enough, neither my parents nor I had ever met his wife. Despite our many invitations, he always hesitated, giving vague excuses about not wanting to introduce her to our family. Half a year into my new job, an unexpected phone call shattered my routine. My mother rarely called me at work, so her voice instantly raised alarm. She first asked if I was well, then quietly said the words that made my chest tighten, "Your father suddenly collapsed." Panicked, I immediately informed my supervisor, rushed out to catch a taxi, and headed for the hospital. The entire ride, my thoughts spiraled with prayers and desperate hopes that my father would be all right. When I reached the waiting room, the sight that greeted me broke my heart. My mother sat there, her face streaked with tears, struggling to compose herself. "What happened, Mom?" I asked, my voice trembling as I sat down beside her. She explained haltingly that the day had begun like any other, but then, with visible pain, she whispered, "Your father has been diagnosed with cancer." The words froze me in place. "Why? How?" I asked in shock. Taking a deep, shaky breath, my mother continued, "It's stage 4. The cancer has spread to the bile duct. They said it's difficult to remove." Tears streamed down her face as she spoke. In desperation, I asked, "What treatment can be done now?" Before she could answer, the doctor entered to explain the situation in more detail. The cancer had metastasized, and even surgery carried grave risks with little hope of success. Our options were limited to chemotherapy or palliative care. As the clock ticked steadily in the background, the weight of his words pressed down on us. Amid the silence, I suggested calling Keith, believing that he should be part of this decision. My mother nodded, though her eyes betrayed uncertainty. I dialed his number repeatedly until he finally answered, his tone already laced with irritation. With urgency, I explained our father's condition and pleaded with him to come to the hospital, but his response was cold. "Now's not the time to fuss over this. There's no point in discussing further. I'm hanging up." And just like that, he ended the call. I stared at my phone in disbelief, shaken by his indifference. I had known he lacked a strong sense of family, but I never imagined he could sound so detached at such a critical moment. When I returned to my mother, she looked at me anxiously. "What did he say?" I forced a weak smile and replied, "He's busy right now." My mother sighed, murmuring, "It would have been comforting if Keith were here." In the months that followed, my father chose to spend his remaining time in a palliative care ward. Eventually, he slipped away quietly. I called Keith to tell him about the funeral, but once again, his response was cold. "I'm busy with work, so I can't attend. Please go ahead without me." True to his word, he never came. Even my mother seemed stunned, as though she never thought her son would abandon his father's funeral. Friends and relatives expressed their disappointment and disbelief at his absence. Afterward, when the house grew quiet, my mother sighed heavily and whispered, "He really didn't come." I took her hand and said firmly, "Mom, let's not dwell on him anymore. We'll walk our path together and treasure Dad's memory." She squeezed my hand, a faint smile breaking through her grief. "Thank you, Nancy." But the very next day, Keith suddenly appeared at our apartment.
I opened the door, and immediately sensed something different in my brother. His usual aloofness was gone, replaced by a restless urgency. Without even greeting me, he stepped inside and demanded, "Where is the inheritance father left behind?" I froze in shock. My voice trembled with anger as I retorted, "Are you serious? You didn't even come to the funeral, and now you show up asking for money?" Keith's face darkened. "Children should know their place and stay quiet," he snapped, his irritation filling the room with tension. Before things escalated further, my mother stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Apart from this apartment, your father didn't leave much behind." "That can't be true," Keith shouted, frustration seeping through his words. My mother silently placed my father's passbook on the table. Keith flipped through it only to discover the savings had already been transferred elsewhere. "What's going on?" he demanded. With quiet dignity, my mother explained, "Before he passed, your father asked me to move the money into my account, and this apartment, it's already in my name." For a moment, Keith looked stunned. Then, clicking his tongue in annoyance, he turned on his heel and left without another word. Watching him go, I couldn't help but feel grateful for Father's foresight in protecting us. Months later, tragedy struck again. My mother suddenly fell ill and was rushed to the hospital. At first, the doctors suspected pneumonia, but after further tests, we were told the illness was far more serious than we imagined. She had only about 3 months left. I was stunned. She had always seemed so healthy, and I blamed myself for not noticing her suffering sooner, for not taking her to a larger hospital earlier. But before I could process it all, 3 months passed, and she slipped away quietly, leaving a silence heavier than words could bear. My aunt and I handled the wake and funeral. Keith, unsurprisingly, never appeared. His absence hurt, but by then, it was something we had almost come to expect. A few days later, while my aunt and I were sorting through heirlooms, Keith appeared at the apartment with his wife, whom we were meeting for the first time. His first words were blunt, "What about Mother's inheritance?" My aunt stared at him in disbelief. His wife stood silently at his side, avoiding our eyes, as if she were complicit in his greed. When I suggested he at least visit Mother's grave, Keith scoffed. "What's the point? Just tell me about the inheritance." That was when my aunt, usually so gentle, finally broke. Her voice, trembling with anger, filled the room. "Keith, how can you speak of money at a time like this? Nancy has shouldered everything for this family while you've done nothing. Have you no gratitude toward your parents?" But Keith brushed her off. "This doesn't concern you, Auntie. Stay out of it." The atmosphere grew colder when his wife spoke for the first time. With a thin smile, she said, "Nancy, you're not thinking of keeping everything for yourself, are you? This apartment would be perfect for us." I was stunned. "Why should I give up our home for the two of you?" I demanded. Unfazed, she continued casually, "It's newly renovated, close to the station, surrounded by shops, it's ideal. We'll move in." Anger surged through me. "Big brother, all you care about is money and inheritance. What's happened to you?" Keith sighed, dismissing me. "Don't raise your voice. It's vulgar. We'll be back in 3 days. Be ready to move out." Tears welled in my eyes, but I refused to break. My aunt gently placed an envelope in my hands. "Your mother left this for you, Nancy. She asked me to give it to you when the time was right." I carefully opened the envelope and found a handwritten letter from my mother. Her words flowed across the page with warmth and love. "To my precious Nancy. If you are reading this, I am no longer with you. Please don't worry about your brother's demands. Everything your father entrusted to me is now yours. After he passed, I changed the apartment into your name. This was our wish, so please accept it without guilt. You have grown into such a kind and compassionate person. Your father and I couldn't be prouder. Remember, knowledge is important, but kindness is what gives life true meaning. Stay strong, live fully, and find happiness." By the time I finished reading, my tears had blurred the ink. My aunt held my hand gently. "Your mother truly cherished you, Nancy. You were her treasure." Inside the envelope was also a bankbook under my name, containing what my parents had saved for me. It was their final gift, their way of ensuring I could stand strong. When Keith and his wife returned days later, barging in without knocking, I was ready. "It's time to leave, isn't it?" Keith sneered. I looked him in the eyes and said calmly, "This house is in my name. Everything belongs to me now." For once, he was speechless. His wife fumed, muttering about how unfair it was, but I stood firm. "If you make trouble, I'll call the police." With nothing left to say, they left in anger, and I cut all ties with them. Now, this apartment is my safe haven, filled with memories of my parents' love. I've begun a new chapter here with someone who respects and supports me. Together, we plan to build a family rooted in the warmth and kindness my parents showed me. Their love lives on in me, and I will carry it forward into the future.